Well, we've got 10:30. Call the meeting to order. Holly, please conduct roll, and when you're acknowledged being present, please introduce the agency or group you're representing.
Wendy Hess.
Bridget Judson's present.
Representing Ben.
You have Des Moines.
Des Moines.
Favor.
Present. Worth County Sheriff's Office representing Sheriff's Offices.
Jason Schlutenhofer.
President, representing the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy.
Cindy Hike.
Cindy Hike, President, Iowa Department of
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Approval of the meeting minutes from November 8th.
Bank will make that motion.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
April 2nd.
Councilman? Got a first and a second. Any further discussion? We'll entertain by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries. And the SWIC report.
Mr. Chair, I just want to check, can everybody hear me okay if you're on the go-to meeting?
Yes, Chris, you're loud and clear.
Super, thank you. And Holly, please, I see Michael Strauss from DNR is on the go-to meeting. He may not have been able to get his microphone unmuted in time for roll call. So if you could please mark him as present. Again, starting off today, I want to extend a big thank you again to HSCMD, John Benson, Blake DeRushi, John Paoli, and Allie Bright for letting us host the meeting here once again this month. It's a really, really excellent facility, and we've enjoyed our time here as well. So again, thank you for letting us host the meeting here. Just a quick update on some of my time over the last couple of months. A lot of it was spent getting our annual legislative report together. That is a yearly report that we have to file with the legislature that documents our activities for the course of the calendar year. This report tends to be more comprehensive as well, and not only activities over the most recent year, but also a historical look at what we've done since the board's inception, going all the way back to 2007. That will be up for approval in new business, and I'll kind of cover that a little bit more in depth there. We continue to coordinate on the derecho response with respect to the SDR deployment in Clinton. No change there. The big update for this month is that the Fema reimbursement funds have been approved, and we are working on transferring them over to the board fund. Look for that money and that transfer to be complete, push things in Clinton operationally. The trailer is basically operating in steady state. Things seem to be going well there, and the recovery project is making good progress as well. They did have a little bit of an extension needed for the use of that trailer, but we are starting to get to the closeout of that project, so that's good for everybody in that case. Again, the commitment's been made to them that they can use the trailer during their recovery process, so they can continue to use that for the short, medium term as well. Over the last month, I've put on a lot of miles on the state ride for a lot of local agency training. This program continues to be successful as we go out and train local agencies, and we've seen a lot of successes following those one-on-one sessions with those agencies. I would encourage anybody that has not yet had a chance to participate in that or request one of those sessions to please do. We also have expanded it recently to cover air medical providers, and the overall feedback from that has been good from top to bottom. Given that we have extended it out to air medical providers, it's probably something we could start looking at other agencies as well that may not necessarily fall within the PSAP realm, such as other state agencies, not to call it a state agency by name, but your DNRs, your DOTs, IDPHs, things like that. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch to expand those training sessions to cover those state agencies as well. Quick update on my trip to Arlington last month. There was nothing overly significant to report as far as the change in any federal policies. However, I did have a chance to express a need to Cisa about some of the grant programs in that as they look at their long-term focus for funding of cybersecurity initiatives, that they also need to keep in mind the bread and butter projects that they've helped facilitate over the last decade or so, and that would be interoperable communications. I was able to give that feedback back to some of the leadership at Cisa that as they look at future grant programs, that those grant funds should also be at least partially allocated to emergency communications to help feed those programs that they helped get started many, many years ago. As far as other things that have taken up the time this past month, we have also worked on an update to status board. I'm happy to report that MOA with Minnesota has been executed. And as a result of that, we should be getting the source code to work on within the next 6 weeks. The source code updates, we're kind of doing this again as a joint interstate project. Minnesota does some of their updates in their cadence, and then when they're done with their stuff, they pass it on to us. We add our updates to the code and pass that back to them. Some of the Minnesota updates that we'll be receiving right away will be the potential for a visual notification of when a reservation is about to expire. Essentially what that's going to look like for the dispatchers now is that when they're using status board and it's up on their screens, an asterisk is going to appear when a reservation is about 15 minutes from expiration. It's visual confirmation that the reservation is about to expire, and if they need to extend it out, it lets them know that, hey, I need to extend this back out. One other feature that is coming to this program is the ability to have a warning notice in case you're going to inadvertently overwrite another user. Their reservation. This will be given visually to the dispatcher as well to hopefully keep inadvertent overwriting of a reservation from happening. So that's coming from Minnesota. Our updates are going to be primarily focused around mobile browser functionality. As far as the program goes, there is a latent mobile site that has been developed previously, and if you try to log on to status board with a mobile phone, it points directly to that mobile Our plan of attack for something like this is to modify how In addition to that, I've also been working a lot with the committees as needed to fill in for people that have had other commitments ongoing. So that's been my month, the last month, Mr. Chair. I'll go ahead and take any questions.
Thanks for the report, and hearing none, we'll move on to a night.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did have the 911 Council meeting just prior to this. If you're interested, you can watch the recording on YouTube. Some highlights from that. we did do a dry run of a 911 leadership training that we've been developing for the last couple of years. We kind of identified a gap with local 911 coordinators, supervisors, whatever that role might be at the local level, where there's a lot of times not necessarily a handoff when somebody gets promoted into that position. So we've developed about a 6-hour training. It was part of our strategic plan, so we worked with one of the work groups that was interested in that. We basically did the dry run with that work group. We also included a new coordinator at the local level to make sure we had that kind of covered, and we were getting good feedback from a new person's perspective as well. We're looking to hold kind of a real course the January or February timeframe. And again, the target group there is kind of that lead 911 person at the local level. It could also be your service board chairs or what have you. So we're trying to figure out if we want to do that in person or virtual. Or some sort of hybrid, but look for that information to come out shortly. Just like Chris has been working on the legislation, will get submitted to the legislature on the 15th. We'll also send that to the 911 from Denise Amber Lee Foundation. One is Face That Fire, and the other is called A Victim's Plea. And finally, there was a third approval for grant funds for Fayette County for their merger with Oline PD. Actually, kind of vice versa on that. It's Oline PD's merger with Fayette County. They identified a need for an additional workstation because of that consolidation. There's grant funds to do so. It's a 50% match with the local level and state share. So we approved an additional $53,000 for their grant for that consolidation. Any questions from me? Thank you.
Thank you. Essex user group, Chair Schlutenhofer, I don't believe is on. So, Swickmeyer, do you have this?
Yes, I can take it, Mr. Chair, or I see Rob Dennert is on the conference line as well. Rob, do you want to take it, or should I?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the user group committee met. We had to reschedule the meeting because of a couple of conflicts. We just actually met on Monday. We looked at 4 applications. 3 of them are before the board for approval today. The one that's not here, we just needed a little bit extra clarification and information on, just with some process changes and things like that, and also to make sure that we understand everything about the request to make sure that everything's going to be copacetic with that. There's no deal breakers with the other application, but we just need a little bit more clarification. The 3 applications that were moved on are in new business for approval later today.
Thanks for that report. We'll move on to the Finance Committee.
Right. So Finance is for the board right now. Our current available funds for 228, which is the board fund, is $214,004.09. And last month, for the month of November, our expenditures were $20,135.25. This report here does not yet reflect the reimbursement funds for the Clinton deployment, but hopefully if the timeline lines up well enough, that will show up next month in our balance.
Any questions for Finance? Hearing none, we'll move on to Governance Committee with Chair Huffman.
Thank you. The Governance Committee met on the 6th. We had no new business to discuss at the time, so Swick-Myers gave us an update on some upcoming standards we'll end up looking over, and then we adjourned.
Thank you. Operations Committee, Chair Bischoff.
Thank you, Chair. The Operations Committee has not met since our last meeting. There was a scheduled meeting. However, there were no one other than myself and Holly were in attendance. And This subsequent meeting got canceled due to scheduling conflicts. We do anticipate meeting next week, I believe. I believe that's our next normally scheduled meeting, which I believe is next week, to review the feedback that we received from technology regarding encryption. What questions are there for me? Thank you.
Thank you. Outreach Committee.
Yes, the newsletter continues to be sent out on normal cadence with the holiday vacation time taking over the last month or so. I think we had a couple of day delay, but it still got out that following Monday or Tuesday. Look for the next newsletter to come out here probably late next week before the holidays and people start taking vacations once again. I do want to let anybody know that if you have anything that is germane to that newsletter that needs to go out into it, just please get in touch with Holly. She's happy to add to it. We continue to look for exciting content to add to that, and if there's anything locally going on that is noteworthy, we can certainly put it in there. So that's the report from the Outreach Committee. I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and we'll pass next to Training Committee, Chair Nichols.
Thank you. The training committee met on November 22nd, and we had a good turnout for a couple days just before Thanksgiving, so appreciate that. Aaron Froning and Swick Myers have made successful progress on the air ambulance landing standard, and my understanding that Aaron recorded in almost one take, and one take wonder, he says, and so we're excited to be able to hear what she provided at our next meeting, and we'll have final approval of that soon. The next project we plan to work on is the Pursuit Standard 1.4.0. Swick Myers has already started that, and will create a slide deck for us to take a look at, and then we'll need someone probably to volunteer to record that also. We finished the meeting with some questions about any upcoming plans for a COM-L. That's necessary for Mr. Mortensen to get some training experience, and I'll let Swick Myers finish the report talking about that.
Yes, so with the COM-L that we're looking at, our yearly TA requests are typically made sometime near the end of the calendar, and we'll be talking about that at the next meeting too. Mr. Rick Mortensen is a COM-L trainer now. He's at least gone through the program, and as a part of that, he needs to teach a couple of courses to get fully certified as a trainer. So one thing we want to do as a state is ask for 2 of those state-sponsored COM-L courses to help make sure that Rick can get the stuff he needs to fully finish that training program so he can teach COM-L. We were going to try to get some of those done this year, but timing precluded us from getting that done. So we'll be looking to add that to our TA asks for 2022.
Thank you. Chair Bischoff, FirstNet Broadband Committee.
Thank you. The FirstNet Broadband Committee met on the 9th and met and had Andy Sackrider present an update on the status of the network and was able to provide some feedback. It was a successful meeting, and AT&T continues to provide build out to the southwest area primarily, as well as backfill. And we also had conversation in regards to making the system more resilient, i.e. having generators in place, and they provided a breakdown on the numbers of units that had been provided. The number escapes me at the moment. Chris, do you have that on the top of your head?
So I missed that part. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the percent of generator or percent of towers that have generators on them.
Ooh, I don't have that number off the top of my head. No.
Yeah, I don't either. I will look for that, and when we get down to the AT&T report, I'll provide it. Are there any questions for me regarding FirstNet?
Hearing none, we'll take a step back. It looks like I missed the Technology Committee. I'm not sure if Chair Updike is available at the moment, or I know he had a conflict this morning, so Chris, you may be handling this as well.
Patrick, I can take this because I believe you have an 11 o'clock engagement that you have to attend to shortly. Technology met a couple of times over last month. One of the big things they discussed was going over the draft encryption documents. This is policies and standards related to encryption on Essex and in general. They were able to complete those documents that they looked at and then pass those back to operations. In addition, last meeting, they discussed a possible TA offering that may be available to us for calendar year 2022, which would include a cybersecurity assessment of LMR, the Isix platform in Iowa. What that would do for us potentially is look at the system as a whole, see if there's any cybersecurity things that could be addressed through either policy or processes, and a few other things as well that would probably help us out long term. The nice thing for that type of analysis is that they would give us a prioritized report, and there would be no cost to us to have that assessment done. So that has been passed on to the training committee chair that they would like to possibly see that as being a part of our ask for this next calendar year. And that's the report for technology.
Thank you for that report. Any information sharing between board members?
Yeah, I have something just to carry on from last month. Last month we talked about the FCC's proposed update to the changes to 4.9 gigahertz. I'm happy to report back that after approval from the chair on the draft comments, we were able to submit joint comments with other states on those proposed rule changes. Just really quickly, with 4.9 gigahertz, we currently have 55 active licenses in the state of Iowa for what are mainly point-to-point backhaul. We did want to voice to the FCC that those types of connections are used in the state of Iowa, and that any changes to 4.9 would have an impact on Iowa agencies. So the hope is that we can at least save some of that spectrum for those types of point-to-point data connections that are currently out there today. We had a few other states sign on to that. I don't have the list in front of me right now, but I will let you know how that transpires over the course of the next several months.
Anything else? Other board members with information to share or exchange? All right, we may have a Essex System Administration report. Scott or someone?
Thank you. First off, on the preventative maintenance front, Motorola has been conducting annual RF maintenance on some local additions recently. Union County was completed on the 7th and 8th of this week, and Humboldt and Adair counties are being done today. Secondarily, numbers for the month of November, Essex continues to grow both in subscriber radios and talk groups. Radios currently stand at 26,674. That's an increase of 603 over October. Talk groups are at 2,679, an increase of 97 over October. And push to talks are at 2,100,065. And
thank you. We'll hear from FirstNet Authority and/or AT&T if Kevin or Tyler have anything for us today.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Morning.
Kevin Nider here, Senior Public Safety at FirstNet Authority. This month's update includes a demonstration priority preemption at the Boulder FirstNet Lab. The articles that I'm going to talk about were forwarded to Holly for publication to the group here. But this has got a great YouTube video attached to it that shows how we test priority and preemption, gives people a better idea of how this works and the reliability of it. We also have the FirstNet Network Prepared, Aware, and Ready for Hurricane Season by Bruce Fitzgerald, who's one of our senior public safety advisors on the East Coast. And so some of the things that we do for preparation of the network. And latest podcast episodes include Public Safety to Public Works, FirstNet AIDS, Casper, Wyoming. In addition, we have our new board member introductions, a little bit more on that, and a link that you can click on. Another link for YouTube where you can actually see the previous board meeting and our board schedule for the next calendar year in 2022, and always available to answer questions. Again, our primary mission is contract management, oversight, and public safety advocacy. So thank you for the opportunity to provide an update today.
Thank you for being available and doing so. Tyler?
This is Tyler Richard from FirstNet Central. So we had several site build-outs in the month of November. The first was in West Des Moines at George Creek Town Center. That was a saturation and density build-out. Des Moines near Douglas Avenue and Beaver Ave, that was also a saturation site ad. And then a couple of coverage ads northeast of Omaha and Crescent, Iowa. There was a site there. And then 2 new sites in southwest Iowa in Shenandoah and Sydney. We are ahead of schedule to complete our end of period coverage build out in Iowa. And I do have the generator metrics. These are as of the end of Q3. 275 generators active, 26 of them installed year to date at the end of Q3, 18 generator sets forecasted through the end of 2021, 17 generator sets forecasted through the end of year of 2022, and another 9 in 2023. And that brings us to a hardened percentage of 34%. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Do we have a Cisa ECD update from Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next National Emergency Communications Plan webinar focuses on communications continuity. The webinar is open to all and is scheduled for today at noon Central Time. Cisa has released a set of 4 educational videos to inform stakeholders on the safe and secure deployment of 5G technologies. This is valuable information to share with your technical partners. Cisa has also released a mobile device cybersecurity checklist to help organizations improve mobile device cybersecurity. I encourage you to review and share this guidance. And I'll put links to each of these items in the chat, or if you don't have access to that, you can reach out to Swick Myers and I'll make sure that he has those. The Cisa Region 7 Emergency Communications Coordinator job that I am filling right now, the job announcement closed in November. ECD has received the first cut of the list of candidates and is working through those right now. Everyone is hopeful for a job offer in the near future. In April 2022, the Department of Homeland Security is hosting an exercise in New Mexico called JAMX 22. This exercise will focus on radio jamming threats, mitigation, and reporting. The exercise planners are accepting applications through the end of the year for boots on the ground first responders with basic level communication skills to participate and support the technical teams in this exercise. If there's any interest from the Iowa Public Safety Communications or first responder community, please notify Swick Myers. And that will conclude my report. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Standards Working Group, Swick Myers.
Yes, Standards Working Group met. We are working on the final touches on the sub-regional talk group standard. That pilot program has been ongoing for a while now. So we've started work on that, and operations looked at that and then passed that back to us. And we're continuing that work on next meeting, which is scheduled for end of December. We're going to try to make and rural, state, county, municipal centers, those that do EMD, those that don't do EMD, and various amounts of call volumes. And with the group that we picked, we have a level of rural to rural, urban, state to county, municipal, and then, of course, EMD and non-EMD, and we have a nice array of call volumes as well with the various centers. Those centers are Ames Police Department, Boone County, Dallas County, Des Moines State Radio, Iowa State University Public Safety, Polk County, Story County, Warren County, Westcom, and Des Moines PD. So we are looking at continuing on that work as we go into the new year. I believe we're working on scheduling some meetings for information gathering in Q1 of 2022. And then from there, after those meetings are done, the information will be aggregated, and then work will continue on. As a part of that information gathering, there will likely be a survey that's given out to those centers to fill out. Blake and I met with them a couple weeks ago on that survey, and we did an initial run through to see if there's any kind of universal things that we could eliminate and streamline for the participating agencies. Blake, that's kind of what I remember from the work on that over the last month. Is there anything I left out?
Not really anything you left out, and I should have brought this up during the 911 council meeting as well. There's a lot going on with CAD to CAD projects right now. So what Chris talked about is one, and that's specific to Iowa and the PSEPs that we've identified. The National 911 Office is also doing a CAD to CAD project. That's more of a national level scale. So just if you hear or see some of those projects going on, just know there are kind of those two efforts. One is specific to Iowa through Cisa. One is national through the National 911 Office.
And of course, on top of that, there's all sorts of standards that are being drafted, edited, and created that go on top of CAD to CAD as well. So this is a very big issue. And again, I think we're very fortunate to be on the leading edge of a project like this because we'll have a chance to have direct input on how this looks long term. That's the report from that group. Mr. Chair, I'll pass it back to you.
And just a clarifying comment for me on that working group. If people aren't aware, when you're describing this project, it's more of a white paper or theoretical at this stage, right?
Correct.
We're not actually connecting CADs at this point.
No. Part of that process, though, if there's money ever found, they may attempt an interface, but that's phase 3, and that's kind of a longer-term project at this point. So with no funding behind it as of yet. So.
All right. Thank you. Any old business? Agenda didn't show any, so we'll move on to new business. And Chris, I bet you've got the user approvals.
Yes. And also, Holly, before we roll into the user approvals, can you reflect the attendance to show that Mindy Benson is on? I believe she was not able to make roll call before, but I see her on the go-to meeting now. So thank you, Mindy, for calling in. New business for the month with used user approvals. We have 3 applicants that are up for approval today. We have Avera Health / Avera Care Flight. They are updating their access to level 2. They're looking for a couple of operational talk groups for medical transports and pickups. These may be also used for their air flight operations as well. Central Iowa Power Cooperative, SIPCO, they are updating their level 2 application. The big thing that they're going to be doing there is they're adding a talk group for the local operations with the electrical generation unit down in Creston. That traffic would be comprised entirely locally, and then they're also looking at standing up a response team over the next couple of calendar years, and then they would be using Essex for something like that type of response as well. Last application up for approval this month is Makoka Police Department. Over the last few months, they have decided to connect core connected consoles to the Essex cores for their dispatching purposes. So that puts them at a level 3 user with operational talk groups, and they're adding radios to the system as well. All three of those applications were reviewed and found to be appropriate, and the loading analysis came back very positive for those applications as well. As a non-voting member of the board, I am unable to make a motion at this point, but Mr. Chair, you could certainly open that up at this point. But those applications did come back positively from user group.
Thank you, and I will entertain such a motion.
Chaparral motion to accept.
I think I've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? We'll vote on the matter. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Chris, annual legislative report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the last item for new business this month. Every year, we are required to submit an annual report to the legislature documenting our activities over the last calendar. This type of report, the drafting of it typically starts around the October timeframe, and then it's sent out to the board a few weeks before the board meeting for their approval. I believe I was able to send it out last week, so it was a little bit slow to get out this year. But this is a look at our activities for calendar year 2021, along with a historical informational section related to things that we have done since the board's inception in 2007. The things that need to be updated before this report is officially sent over to the legislature are the number of Essex radios, but again, as Scott mentioned, those number of radios are growing very rapidly, so we won't have that number until near the end of the calendar, and then we're still waiting on a finalized map from the system builder on site locations and things like that that will be included in 2 spots in the document. Otherwise, it is considered to be complete, and it is ready for approval today, assuming everything looks good, and discussion if necessary as well. I believe there may be a couple of small grammatical edits that were suggested by Patrick Updike, but other than basically adding an adverb and a spot to add some clarifications, I think it's been good so far. So, Mr. Chair, I can go ahead and take questions on this, and we can go from there.
I would certainly agree that, in my view, it's an exceptional report, very comprehensive, and I think it's beneficial not only to the legislative members who hopefully read it, but also to us in our presentations and discussions with people at local or state level. So excellent work from my view. Any further questions? And just for the formality.
Chris?
Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Captain, is this something that should perhaps be highlighted in the newsletter so that it does get
Certainly,
out there?
I believe. Yes, I believe, Holly, we have a link to the previous year's legislative reports in the newsletter. So, assuming this is adopted today, once this is officially submitted to the legislature, this would be something that would be linked in the newsletter in its final form, and then that would be there for people to review as well. What you're seeing on the go-to meeting right now is the user list that I have highlighted as a reminder to myself to update this after today's meeting. But yeah, this would certainly be something that's added in the newsletter.
Fantastic. I just think it would be a great way to highlight the activities and breadth and scope of the board for those that are interested. Thank you.
I briefly, while you were scrolling, saw Jim Lundstedt referenced. I'm not sure if we want that to be more agency neutral now, perhaps.
Of course. Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Well, unless there's further questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve this document. Peter and Haley, did I see a hand? Okay, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we've had a quick and efficient meeting today. We have an opportunity for public comment, if there's any. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.